It felt like something was attacking me, or that something terrible was about to happen. I asked for a pill to help me relax, and I managed to sleep. The next morning, during the doctor's rounds, I was told that my oxygen saturation had dropped significantly. I was barely getting any oxygen. They needed to transfer me to intensive care.
Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond the Veil. Today we hear from Maria Jose Molinero as she recounts her extraordinary near-death experience after spending 21 days in a coma. From her struggles with a severe illness to the profound revelations she encountered in the spiritual realm, Maria Jose shares what she was shown about the future of humanity and the purpose of her return.
My name is Maria Jose Molinero. I am Spanish and live on a beautiful island in Spain called Mallorca. I had a near-death experience in January 2022. It was a long experience because I spent 21 days in a coma. After dying, I entered a coma for 21 days, and during that time I was on the other side. I was not near my body at all until I woke up on January 25th, 2022, in intensive care. During all that time, I was shown beings in the other plane, the sky, or whatever you want to call it. I was shown many things that are coming for this planet and humanity. It was something I was meant to come back and share, to help prepare people for what is to come. To give you some background, I have a lung condition. I have bronchial allergies, and in winter, if it gets cold, I catch a cold, and it complicates my allergies. The inflammation in my lungs produces a lot of mucus, and my bronchi become inflamed, making it hard for my lungs to function. However, I always manage with nebulizers, those oxygen masks with medication that releases a mist, which I'm sure you've all seen at some point. With that treatment, I always recovered without complications, never developing bronchitis or pneumonia. I explain this because in December 2021, I caught a cold, and it triggered a bronchial reaction. At the same time, I had been offered an interview, which I declined. What happened next stems from that decision. I had refused because I didn't want to be public. I was a mother and a wife, and at that time my son was 17 years old. I wanted a normal life. However, my life had never been normal since childhood due to experiences I've had. When I got sick due to the pandemic, nebulizers were not being used. I was told to continue with inhaled medication, even though it had never been effective for me. But because of the virus, they didn't want anything being released into the air that could cause infections. Whether or not you had the virus, there was concern about false negatives. I got worse at home, spending 10 days there before worsening significantly on New Year's Eve. I felt like I couldn't breathe properly, so I went to the hospital expecting to receive nebulizer treatment, which had always helped me. But again, they told me nebulizers were not being used, and they admitted me because I had bilateral pneumonia. 1/3 of each lung was saturated and not functioning. I spent 4 days in a hospital ward, not in the ICU, receiving inhaled medication, but I did not improve. In fact, I got worse. They gave me a small oxygen tube through my nose, which helped slightly. I didn't feel like I was dying. It was just another difficult episode, but nothing I hadn't experienced before. However, on the 3rd night, something happened that was crucial for understanding what would happen next. I woke up in my hospital room with an overwhelming sense of panic, the worst fear I had ever felt in my life. I didn't know why. I hadn't dreamed of anything, seen anything, or been told anything. The nurses asked if I had seen something on the television, but I hadn't even turned it on. It felt like something was attacking me, or that something terrible was about to happen. I asked for a pill to help me relax, and I managed to sleep. The next morning, during the doctor's rounds, I was told that my oxygen saturation had dropped significantly. I was barely getting any oxygen. They needed to transfer me to intensive care, and give me a stronger oxygen flow. If that didn't work, they would have to intubate me. I was taken to the ICU where they increased my oxygen support, but I did not improve. At one point, I had about 10 doctors and nurses around me. A doctor told me, either we intubate you or you will die. At that moment, I said, well, if I have to go, I will go. In a way, it felt like a blessing because being in those higher realms, the ones we call heaven, is incredible. However, at that moment, my son came to my mind. He was not a baby, but we were very close, and I knew he would need me in the future. That thought made me panic, and I decided to fight, but I was slipping away. They asked if I wanted to say goodbye to someone, and they gave me a tablet to make a video call. I chose to talk to my husband and told him to take care of our son. He had already given his consent for them to intubate me if necessary because he wanted me to fight. Saying goodbye was emotional. I then turned to God. In Spain, most of us are raised Catholic, but my family was not religious, and I do not belong to any church. However, I have always had a deep faith in a higher power. I did not ask for a specific outcome. I just told God to do what was best, but I did ask Him to take care of my son if I had to leave. At that moment, I left my body. The doctors were still trying to save me, but I was gone. This happened on January 4th, 2022, and I did not return to my body until January 25th, 2022, 21 days later. While I was gone, the first thing that happened was unexpected. Instead of going to the planes of light where I had been before, I was pulled into a dark, lower realm. There, I encountered a being that everyone might call Satan, the representation of evil. This being put me through 3 tests, 1 each day. My physical body in the hospital was attacked by a different bacterial infection. Every day, my body got worse. In those lower realms, communication is telepathic. This being kept telling me, I am going to extinguish your light. In telepathy, you don't just hear words, you feel what the other person feels. I felt its hatred and immense suffering. It carried the pain of the entire world. It was terrifying, but I clung to my faith. I repeated over and over, only God in me, only the light in me. It didn't matter what name you give it. If you recognize the divine, you can hold on to it. After passing the 3 tests, I was finally taken to the higher realms, the place people call heaven. But before that, I want to emphasize something. During those 3 days of trials, each time I overcame one, my physical body in the hospital suffered another severe infection. First, I contracted the deadliest strain of COVID-19 while my body was already extremely weak. Then, I developed a bacterial lung infection, which is often fatal. Lastly, I had another dangerous infection that entered through my urinary tract. Despite all of this, my body kept fighting, though the doctors had told my family to prepare for the worst, even while fully intubated and receiving maximum medical intervention. They believed I would not survive, but I was not aware of any of this. I was in the other realm, experiencing something completely different. After those trials, I ascended to a bright, luminous space where I encountered a familiar presence. Everything around me was white. There were no walls, no floor, no ceiling, just an infinite glowing whiteness, as if I were inside a cloud of light. There, I met a deceased relative, someone who had passed 3 years earlier. My greatest concern at that moment was my son, and I begged this relative, if I don't return, please take care of him. But my relative responded, don't worry, you are going back, and you will be as healthy as before. This seemed impossible. Even if I survived, medically speaking, I should have had severe permanent damage, lung damage, muscle loss, neurological issues. After that, I ascended even higher and saw Jesus Christ. Now, I want to clarify something. Christ does not belong to any one religion. Though Christianity speaks of him, He is beyond religious institutions. He made me understand that he is a consciousness, part of God, part of the divine source. He told me that he oversees not only Earth, but also our solar system and even this entire galaxy, which contains millions of solar systems. He governs the evolution of souls and the spiritual learning process of beings in this part of the universe. I saw him as Jesus because in one of my past lives I had known him personally. He revealed to me the specific family connection we had shared in that lifetime, as well as my name from that life, information I had never heard before. After returning to my body, I found historical documents that confirm this name and family link. This was not something I could have imagined. Jesus showed me a kind of floating screen, like a large tablet in his hands. On it, he showed me a future event that must happen on Earth. It wasn't something that might happen, it was something destined to happen. But he reassured me that neither my son nor I would be harmed by it. At that moment, I realized that I would return to my body. Then Jesus did something that deeply impacted me. He looked at me and, through telepathic communication, asked, "What are you doing with your life?" In that realm, there is no lying or hiding. Thoughts are immediately known, as is the sincerity of emotions. If I were to compliment someone falsely, they would instantly know my true thoughts and feelings. When Jesus asked me that question, I felt deep sorrow because I knew what he meant. I had spent my life avoiding my spiritual mission out of fear of being public, fear of speaking about my experiences, fear of stepping into the role I was meant to fulfill. He did not scold me, but I felt his sadness and disappointment. In that realm, everything is love and peace, but I was confronted with the reality that I had neglected my purpose. Each of us has a mission, whether public or private, and I had chosen to ignore mine. I was overwhelmed with regret. He did not force me to return, but I knew I had to. I agreed to take responsibility for my mission and to do what I had come into this life to do. After that, I ascended to an even higher realm. There, I saw Jesus descending to earth and returning to heaven repeatedly. I instantly knew, without him needing to tell me, that he was working tirelessly to assist humanity in an upcoming spiritual transformation. I was shown that a great shift is coming, and we all need to prepare. That was why I had been given so much knowledge, to help others prepare for this event. This event will be like a spiritual exam. Those who are ready will ascend with the planet, while those who are not will have to continue their spiritual lessons elsewhere. Jesus did not speak of dimensions or New Age concepts, but he did tell me that Earth is going to ascend. Some souls will ascend with it, and others who are not prepared will reincarnate on other planets similar to Earth, places of duality where good and evil exist together so they can continue learning. The Earth cannot remain at its current level. It must evolve. Only those who are spiritually ready will remain. Then I saw Archangel Michael. I had never been particularly drawn to angels, as most of my experiences had been with Jesus or beings from other planets who had given me information. But in that realm, I saw Michael, dressed in golden light. I perceived him as a warrior, a being of justice and protection. At one point, I witnessed something significant, a massive asteroid approaching Earth. I don't want to spread fear, but I must share what I was shown. I saw Jesus, Archangel Michael, and other celestial beings working together to prevent a catastrophic event. I also saw spaceships, yes, extraterrestrial beings, assisting in the effort. They were all trying to deflect or break apart this asteroid to protect humanity. After a while, Michael returned looking disheartened. Then I heard God's voice telepathically tell him, "There are things that must happen." In that moment, I understood that some events cannot be avoided because they are part of humanity's awakening. If humanity refuses to wake up voluntarily, then it will happen through global events that will force us to reflect. I saw that when the asteroid appears in the sky, people will know that their governments have been lying to them. The authorities will have known about it for a long time, but will have hidden it from the public. When people finally see it with their own eyes, they will feel betrayed. At that moment, I was placed inside different people's bodies, so I could feel their emotions. I experienced what it felt like to be an elderly woman abandoned in a nursing home, whose only comfort was the occasional touch from a kind nurse. I felt the deep sadness of a person undergoing gender transition surgery, carrying immense emotional pain. I was shown countless experiences to help me understand human suffering at a profound level. Then I was taken to yet another higher realm, where I saw translucent beings, both men and women, dressed in white robes. They had golden hair, and their eyes were bright with wisdom. These beings were highly advanced spiritually, but they lacked empathy for humanity. They cared about the earth, but not the people. When I told them about human suffering, they responded telepathically. Where would we take humanity? Wherever they go, they bring destruction. I felt deep sorrow because I couldn't defend humanity against that truth. We are destructive, to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet. Then I reached the highest point of my journey. I became one with the universe. I saw God, not as a being with a form, but as an immense radiant light. I felt infinite love and expansion. At that moment, I sent a telepathic plea: God, have mercy on the world. Shorten the time of suffering. God responded by sending out a pulse of light, and in that instant I woke up in the ICU. My recovery was miraculous. The doctors could not explain how I healed so rapidly. Within 10 days, I was home. Now, I share my experience publicly, as Jesus asked me to. The time for change is now. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helps you.